now in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So this is country number 65. And hopefully I get to see my fourth wonder of the world while I'm here, which will be Christ the Redeemer. Today I've got a tour booked of a favela, which I think are quite dangerous places to go to, but as it's a guided tour and it's a local, I should be okay. A little bit more worried about here than Argentina or Uruguay, because I've heard that it can be a bit more dangerous, but I think it's going to be the same sort of rules to abide by as I did there, which is stick to the main roads, stick to where there's lots of people, don't flash anything expensive, and don't carry too much money. So I'm walking by a beach right now, which I would say is probably one of the most famous beaches in the world, and that's Copacabana Beach. It looks quite nice. I haven't really got the right clothes for it today, but maybe at some point during my stay I'll pop down there and relax for a little bit, but then that's not really me, is it? I very rarely relax. Well, that was trickier than I planned. I just went to get some food at a beach bar. I just assumed because it's a touristy area it'll be fine, but no, they didn't speak English in there, and the menu was only in Portuguese. I didn't have any Wi-Fi, so I couldn't even use my best friend Google Translate today, so I just had to try to point and use hand gestures, and I managed to get some sort of kebab and some chips. But I think this means that going forwards it's not going to be as easy as I thought here. I don't think as many people are going to speak English as I'd hoped. So I'm now in the biggest favela in South America, Rocinha, I think it's pronounced. It's actually one of the safest, but the biggest, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is because the police and the drug dealers here work together, because they don't want any trouble. They work together to make sure that they both profit out of it. So there's several levels to the favela, and what happens is obviously the bottom is the oldest part of the buildings, and as families get bigger, as the favela gets bigger with more people, they have to build more levels and they go higher and higher. They're obviously the newer parts, some of them look a lot nicer. The highest parts in the favela is usually where the more important people will live, that may have worked their way up through the favela, as well as the leader of the favela will often be at the top. Going further into the favela, apparently there's people from all different nationalities that live here. British, French, Swiss. They come here because it's cheap or it's free. So it's very different from how I imagined, because you've got churches here, you've got normal supermarkets, you've got McDonald's, schools, everything's kind of normal. The things you get in a normal city, you get here as well. So I've just been down to breakfast, tried to get a cup of tea, tried to get hot water out of those coffee machines. You know the coffee machines? There was like 8 different options. I was trying to read them to try to work out. So you could see some of them were coffee, some of them were chocolate or cocoa or something like that. You could sort of work out what they were. So I thought, well, one of these has got to be hot water. Which one's the hot water one? So I kept looking down. I couldn't see anything that looked like water. So I went for the last option, hoping that was going to be hot water. No, it wasn't. Some sort of weird yellow liquid came out of it, and I just gave up. So I couldn't get a cup of tea today. But the thing is, I'm definitely finding it harder to navigate South America than when I was in China, because when I first got to China, I met up with Marika, and she spoke Chinese, so she helped me a little bit get around. But what I noticed as well is a lot of the tourist areas would have English translations, so you'd still have English menus. Today, I've got a private guide, and I'm walking around this place called Lapa, which is more to the centre, even on Rio de Janeiro. Transport. Behind me is the aqueduct, which obviously used to be an aqueduct, but now it's actually a tram railway and a tram goes along there all the way up to mountain top over there, which is called St. Teresa. To understand it better, you'd think that I'd be able to get an idea of the word, and sometimes I do, but very, very few people here speak English. I don't speak a word of Spanish or Portuguese really, which is my own fault. I should have learnt a little bit before coming here. I didn't think it was going to be quite as much of a challenge as it is. I'm at the Metropolitan Cathedral, which is actually based on an Aztec pyramid, and it's 30 stories high, but once you get inside it is just straight up to the roof, so I'm going to go inside in a second. However, first up there's this statue here, which is the Jesus homeless statue. So basically it's saying that any homeless person could be Jesus coming back, as you can see from the marks on his feet. So I'm inside the Metropolitan Cathedral now. It is huge. The height of this place, obviously 30 stories, absolutely huge. So I'm now walking up the Celeron steps. They were designed by a Chilean artist, and he started making the mosaics, and then people from all around the world really admired the mosaics on the steps. That they started sending him materials from all over the world to continue making such pretty colours and patterns on the steps. So these steps do go a lot higher than I thought. I thought it was just like a small staircase, but they do go up quite high. But I do think the most beautiful part is right down the bottom where all the crowds are. So I'm not going to get a photo without lots of people around, but that's how it is. Now COVID is no longer an issue. But what I find kind of interesting, maybe this is a stupid observation, but as you start walking down, the steps look completely normal. It's like a normal set of steps. You wouldn't even know all the mosaics were there until you turn around. I didn't really notice until just now is the detail of all these different tiles that from all over the world, these tiles have been added, and even on the steps themselves.
There's no one I'd rather see close to me. That's all I need. If I could stay, then I will stay here forever. If you're meant to, then let's be the best together.
This is another favela, which I guess is more dangerous than where I was in Rocinha. But my tour guide today has just told me that he went past the favela I was in yesterday, about a week ago, and there was a big problem going on there. Not necessarily as safe as I assumed it was yesterday. So it's been a bit on and off all morning, between being cloudy and a little bit clearer. This is the current view that I can see from the terrace here. I'm not sure what I'm meant to be able to see from there. Am I meant to be able to see Christ the Redeemer from here, or just a view of the city? I don't know, but I can't see anything. So I'm just hopeful, really hopeful that when we get to the top I can at least see the statue when I get there. But a little bit of history anyway about the statue. So I think it was built in 1931, and it's one of the new 7 wonders of the world. So this will make it my 4th of the new 7 wonders of the world. It was built to represent the independence of Brazil from Portugal. And an interesting thing about Rio de Janeiro as well. So Rio de Janeiro means river of January. So the town was built, or the city was built in reference to a saint whose birthday is in January. And the people that first settled here believed there was a river here. They believed that Rio was basically a river, but it's not. It's actually a bay. So they decided to keep the name anyway, even though it's a bay and there are no rivers in Rio de Janeiro. But that's what it basically means, River of January. I got super lucky with the crowds. I think because it was so cloudy, and I was almost convinced that I wasn't going to get a good photo up here. But thankfully it's cleared. But because we kind of left as it was cloudy, less people were coming up here, so I think we had a bit more space to actually get some shots, get some photos. So they're not the best photos in the world, but they're good enough, so I'm quite happy. So my 4th wonder of the world, Christ the Redeemer. 3 more left to go. The weather's taken a bit of a turn for the worst again, unfortunately, but we're coming towards Sugarloaf Mountain now, and we're going to get a monorail up there. Well, cable car up there. So we've made it to the first peak, which is Uka Mountain, but we're gonna, because the weather's suddenly got a bit better, we're gonna try and get to the next peak, which is actually Sugarloaf, which is the bigger peak. However, neither of them are quite as high as where I was earlier with Christ the Redeemer. But I'm very lucky once again, because a moment ago it was raining, cloudy, now the sun's come out again. Fantastic, so hopefully I'll get some good views when I get to the top. And now behind me is Sugarloaf Mountain. The weather hasn't been great, but a moment ago that was covered in fog, and literally like 2 seconds later now the fog has lifted. So hopefully by the time we get to the top it will be clear and maybe a little bit brighter than it looks at the moment. Surprisingly very windy up here. This side is a bit calmer than the other side, but I'm so worried I'm going to drop my phone while I'm trying to take photos near the edge. So I'm just about to start a trek up to Pedra do Telegrafo, which is a beautiful viewpoint with like a overhanging cliff. It's meant to be quite a tricky trek. It's about 45 minutes up. It's meant to be quite steep. So far it seems okay, but I can see it's starting to get steeper. Here I am at Pedra do Telegrafo. It's not very busy, so I've actually heard that quite often people queue for like an hour to get a photo here. But thankfully, we're the only ones up here, I guess because of the weather. Although the weather's kind of bad, it's a bit of rain, quite cloudy, it's still quite a nice view. And what's quite nice is the hike. The hike wasn't too tough, to be honest, but I am sweating. I'm very hot and sweaty from the hike up here. It was about 40 minutes. If it was a hotter day and a much clearer day, I think I'd be even hotter than I am now, and I think the hike would have been tougher to get up here. But thankfully, we've got the place to ourselves, so we should be able to get some good photos.
Here with me, I'm incomplete. You're what I need. You're the reason I will find my way. Without you, I'm lost.
Today, I've got a private guide, and I'm walking around a place called Lapa, which is more to the centre of Rio De Janeiro. Behind me is the aqueduct, which obviously used to be an aqueduct, but now it's actually a tram railway, and a tram goes along there all the way up to a mountain top over there, which is called St. Teresa. I've got to be quiet because it's a library. I'm inside the Royal Portuguese Reading Rooms, which is one of the most beautiful libraries in the world, as you can see. Absolutely amazing in here.
If I could stay, then I will stay here forever. If you're meant to, then let's be the best together.
don't know how old, don't know quite how old they are, but they're really old books, and loads have been donated to the reading room, and yeah, it's just like you're in like some sort of movie. It's absolutely amazing in here. So I'm now in a place called The Maze, which is actually inside a favela. So I wasn't too sure if I should be coming in here, but it's totally safe. It feels very safe here. My tour guide has brought me over here, and it's fantastic. And it's just like all these different mosaics that have been placed around here. The guy who lives here is actually British, but he said he's lived here for 40 years. I had quite a shock when he started speaking English to me and had a proper English accent. But yeah, it's a British guy that's lived here for 40 years inside the favela, and he's built all of this, which is amazing. And this is where he lives, just underneath here. I'm at a Shell petrol station. I'm actually on a Jeep safari today. So the idea is to go to Tijuca National Park, drive around and do a bit of walking around the park, which is somewhere I really wanted to see. I would like to have spent a lot longer there and done some proper hikes around the park, but I just haven't got the time because I'm going home tonight. So this is just like a half-day tour. The weather is awful. The weather is bloody awful. It's pissing it down. I've got lucky and there's a toucan in this tree, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a good photo. Let me see what I can do. I'm now at a waterfall. I've seen a lot of waterfalls, to be honest, but it's still quite a cool thing to see. And I guess it's probably extra strong because of the wet weather. It's probably a lot stronger than it would normally be. We're now taking a short hike to the park to see some of the sights. The weather's still awful. I've decided to put my hat on to try to protect my head a little bit from the rain. But yeah, it's an interesting place to visit. It's not quite the sort of jungle vibe I was hoping for, but I guess that means I need to go to the Amazon when I return to South America, maybe next year. I'm at Rio International Airport, just waiting for my trip back to London. It's been just over a week, but it feels so much longer. And when I first came to South America, I was quite worried, quite concerned about the safety, about being mugged, kidnapped. But I was fine, as long as you're vigilant and careful, like I was, no issues at all, really. And I think I was quite lucky. So it's been a really good trip. I'm absolutely exhausted because I've done so much. It feels like I've been away for weeks, but I think that's because I just did so much. But it's been a good trip. I definitely return to South America at some point. I need to go to Peru. Maybe I'll try Colombia, maybe Chile and Bolivia. And not as dangerous as I thought it would be. I'm sure it probably still is, but I was safe. At all times I was safe. Didn't have any issues, thankfully.